From stuffing suitcases full of over-the-counter medication that is literally prescription only in American grocery stores to stockpiling purple wrappers of chocolate like a doomsday prepper, American expats and tourists are willing to do absolutely anything they can to bring a piece of Britain back home with them. My name is Olivia. I am an American who moved to the UK about 2 years ago, and I am still constantly baffled, amused, and honestly incredibly impressed by the differences between these two countries. Living here has completely rewired my brain, especially when it comes to grocery shopping. There is this very specific phenomenon that happens when an American visits the UK, or when an expat like me goes back to the States for the holidays. We turn into absolute hoarders. We dedicate half of our luggage allowance to British supermarket staples because the American equivalents are either terrible, insanely expensive, or they just flat out do not exist. These are 10 things Americans always buy before leaving Britain. Number 1. British pharmacy painkillers and cold medicine. I was literally shocked the first time I walked into a Boots pharmacy here. In the US, a tiny bottle of name brand Tylenol or Advil will set you back easily $8 or $10. You go into a British supermarket and you can buy a pack of paracetamol or ibuprofen for 30 pence. It is basically free. I remember staring at the shelf thinking there must be some kind of catch, but there is not. The UK regulates the pricing of basic generic medication to keep it accessible for everyone. But the real reason Americans clear out the pharmacy shelves before flying home is something called Nurofen Plus. Over here, you can walk up to a pharmacy counter and buy ibuprofen combined with codeine over the counter. You just have to answer a couple of basic questions from the pharmacist to prove you know how to use it safely. In the US, we would never ever be trusted with that. Getting any medication with codeine in America requires a doctor visit, a prescription, a massive insurance copay, and a lot of jumping through hoops. So when Americans realize they can just buy it for a few quid to help with their severe migraines or back pain, they stock up. It is the ultimate practical souvenir. Number 2, real Cadbury chocolate. We need to talk about this because it is actually a massive point of transatlantic tension. If you buy a Cadbury Dairy Milk bar in the United States, you are not eating real British Cadbury, you are eating a lie. Back in 2015, the Hershey company actually forced a ban on the import of British Cadbury chocolate into the United States. They claimed the packaging was too similar to their own products and it was confusing consumers, but everyone knows the real reason. British chocolate is vastly superior, and Hershey did not want the competition. The legal standards for what constitutes milk chocolate are completely different in the UK compared to the US. British Cadbury uses liquid milk and has a much higher fat content. It is creamy, it melts in your mouth, and it tastes rich. American chocolate companies often use a process that produces butyric acid. That is the exact same chemical compound found in Parmesan cheese and, famously, human vomit. To British people, American chocolate literally tastes like sick. Once an American tries a real British flake, a crunchy, or a massive bar of dairy milk, their taste buds are ruined for US chocolate forever. So we pack our bags full of it before the flight home, because we literally cannot legally buy the good stuff back in the States. Number 3, bizarrely flavored British crisps. In America, we have potato chips, and our flavors are pretty safe. We have barbecue, sour cream and onion, maybe salt and vinegar if we are feeling crazy, and a million variations of cheese and ranch. Then you come to the UK, and the crisp aisle is a culinary wild west. I am talking about Walker's prawn cocktail crisps. I am talking about roast chicken flavor. I am talking about pickled onion monster munch. In the US, we would never think to make a potato chip taste like a prawn cocktail. It sounds completely unhinged to the American ear, but then you try them. The prawn cocktail flavor does not actually taste like seafood. It is this sweet, tangy, slightly tomato-based flavor that hits every single dopamine receptor in your brain. British people have a deep psychological need for savory, meaty, and intensely acidic flavors in their snack foods. The crunch and the punch of a pickled onion monster munch claw will clear your sinuses and leave you craving more. Americans take these home because they are the perfect conversation starter at a party. But secretly, we just become incredibly addicted to them. Hey, if you are enjoying this transatlantic culture shock and laughing at my expat realizations, do me a huge favor and hype up this video in the comments. Drop a like, share it with someone who loves traveling, and show some support so I know you guys are actually loving these UK versus US breakdowns. Number 4, Marks & Spencer, Percy Pigs. If you have not been to the UK, you need to understand that Marks & Spencer, or M&S, is a premium supermarket. It feels very posh, very civilized, and very adult. But their biggest cultural export is a gummy candy shaped like a pig. Percy Pigs have basically become a national religion over here. They launched in the early 1990s, and they are made with real fruit juice. They are incredibly soft, slightly chewy, and they have this distinct grape and raspberry flavor that you just cannot find in American candy. In the States, our gummy candies are usually quite tough and coated in artificial wax like a Haribo gummy bear or a Swedish fish. Percy Pigs have this delicate foam ear situation going on. Americans who live here fall in love with them because they feel like a luxury candy, but they are sold right by the self-checkout tills. They even have an entire expanded universe now with Colin the Caterpillar, Fizzy Pigtails, and Percy Pig dessert sauces. You cannot buy them in America, so they are the ultimate souvenir to bring back for your friends, or just to eat alone in your hotel room while packing. Number 5, British Heinz baked beans. Now, I know what you are thinking. We have baked beans in America. We literally invented them, but British baked beans and American baked beans are two completely different species. American baked beans are traditionally cooked with brown sugar, molasses, and heavily smoked pork fat. They are incredibly sweet, almost like a barbecue side dish, and you would only ever eat them at a summer cookout next to a hot dog. British Heinz baked beans come in a savory, slightly sweet tomato sauce. They are not a barbecue side. They are breakfast. They are lunch. They are dinner. They are the ultimate comfort food. The cultural phenomenon of beans on toast was shocking to me when I first moved here. I thought it looked like a struggle meal, but then you toast a thick slice of sourdough, butter it heavily, and pour hot savory beans over the top, maybe with a little grated mature cheddar cheese. It is a revelation. Quick thing before we get to the top half of this list, including the one thing I literally had to buy an extra suitcase for. The data on this channel shows that over 80% of you watching right now are not subscribed. That means you are showing up for the content, but the algorithm has no reason to show you the next video. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Number 6. High Street Pharmacy Skincare. When you walk into an American pharmacy like CVS or Walgreens, the lighting is harsh, everything is locked behind plexiglass, and the skincare section feels very clinical. When you walk into a large British Boots, it feels like a department store beauty counter. The UK has access to incredible, affordable skincare that is either wildly expensive in the US or just completely unavailable. The biggest one is the Boots No 7 brand. It is a British institution. Their serums and moisturizers have literal waiting lists when they launch because independent clinical trials constantly prove they work just as well as $300 designer creams. On top of that, because the UK is geographically and economically tied to Europe, French pharmacy brands like La Roche-Posay, Avène, and Vichy are incredibly cheap and available on every high street. In the US, those are considered premium imported brands and they are marked up heavily. So American women will walk into a Boots in central London and absolutely clear out the shelves of sunscreens, vitamin C serums, and No 7 Protect and Perfect creams. Number 7. Proper English tea. Before I moved to the UK, my concept of tea was a dusty Lipton bag that you only drank when you had a sore throat, or it was iced and loaded with a cup of sugar in the American South. Here is the truth. Britain runs on tea. It is not just a beverage, it is a coping mechanism. It is a greeting. It is the solution to every emotional crisis. Break up? Have a cup of tea. Got fired? I will put the kettle on. Raining outside? Tea. The quality of everyday supermarket tea here is light years ahead of the US. Brands like Yorkshire Gold, PG Tips, and Twinings Everyday are robust, strong, and designed to stand up to a splash of milk. When Americans taste a properly brewed cup of Yorkshire tea for the first time, it is like a light bulb goes on. We suddenly understand why an entire empire was built around this leaf. Because it is so cheap and lightweight, Americans will buy boxes of 200 tea bags and shove them into the corners of their suitcases, so they do not have to go back to drinking sad American tea dust. Also, this is exactly the kind of thing I go much deeper on with the people who support this channel directly. So if you are sitting there thinking, okay, I need the fuller version of this story, join the membership below. That is where I share the deeper thoughts, the more personal side of all this, and the extra bits I cannot always fit into the main videos. Number 8, British condiments. Americans are very proud of our condiments, but we basically just rely on ketchup, mustard, and mayonnaise. The British condiment game is operating on a totally different level of complexity. The two heavyweights that Americans always smuggle home are HP sauce and Branston pickle. HP sauce, also known as brown sauce, is impossible to fully describe to an American who has never had it. Imagine if ketchup, barbecue sauce, and Worcestershire sauce had a baby. It is made with tomatoes, molasses, dates, and tamarind extract. It is tangy, slightly spicy, and deeply savory. You put it on a bacon sandwich and it changes your life. Then there is Branston pickle. It is not a pickled cucumber. It is a sweet, spicy, sticky chutney made from diced root vegetables, apples, dates, and spices. You put a thick layer of it inside a cheddar cheese sandwich, creating the famous cheese and pickle sandwich. The crunch of the pickle against the sharp British cheddar is a textural masterpiece. You cannot find anything quite like it in the American grocery store ecosystem, so jars of these get wrapped in t-shirts and carefully packed into checked luggage every single day at Heathrow. Number 9. Bisto gravy granules and OXO cubes. To understand why Americans buy this, you have to understand the British Sunday roast. In the US, a massive roast dinner with meat, potatoes, vegetables, and endless gravy is reserved for Thanksgiving or Christmas. In the UK, it happens every single Sunday. It is a weekly ritual. Because they make gravy so often, the British have perfected the art of the shortcut. Bisto gravy granules are a powdery magic. You just pour boiling water over them, stir, and suddenly you have a rich, thick, savory, meat-flavored gravy that tastes like it took 3 hours to make. Then you have OXO cubes, which are these crumbly little beef stock cubes wrapped in foil. You can crumble them directly into shepherd's pie, stews, or bolognese to add instant umami flavor. In America, our instant gravies usually come in packets, and they often end up lumpy or overly salty. The convenience and the flavor profile of Bisto is so specific to the British palate that expats hoard these red cardboard tubes like they are gold bars. Number 10. Blackcurrant squash and Ribena. This one requires a little bit of historical context because it blew my mind when I learnt about it. In the UK, there is a whole category of drink called squash or cordial or diluting juice. It is a thick, highly concentrated fruit syrup that you pour a tiny bit of into a glass and then top up with tap water. It encourages kids to drink more water, and it is a staple in every British household. The most popular flavour by a landslide is blackcurrant, famously sold under the brand name Ribena. But if you offer an American something blackcurrant flavoured, they will look at you with total confusion. We do not have blackcurrant in the US. Our default purple flavour is grape. The reason why goes back over a century. In the early 1900s, the United States government federally banned the growing of blackcurrant plants. The plants were carrying a fungus called white pine blister rust, which was threatening the entire American logging industry. To save the timber industry, they sent out crews to eradicate blackcurrant bushes across the entire country. So an entire century of Americans grew up without ever tasting this fruit. Meanwhile, during World War II in the UK, citrus fruits like oranges were impossible to import. The British government needed a vitamin C source for children, so they encouraged the mass planting of blackcurrants because they thrive in the cold, wet British climate. The government actually gave out free blackcurrant syrup to kids. Because of these two completely different historical events, Brits love blackcurrant and Americans do not even know what it is. When Americans finally taste a cold glass of Ribena, they realize they have been missing out on this deeply tart, sweet, complex berry flavor their entire lives. They buy bottles of the concentrated syrup to take home because it is literally a forbidden fruit in American history. Living in the UK changes you. It changes your vocabulary. It changes how you look at the weather. But most importantly, it changes your pantry. You come over here expecting everything to be basically the same as the US, just with a different accent. But the reality is that the food culture, the pharmacy laws, and the historical flavour profiles are entirely unique. So next time you are at a UK airport, look closely at the Americans in the terminal. I guarantee you, inside their meticulously packed suitcases, wrapped tightly in hotel laundry bags, there are at least 3 packets of Percy Pigs, a tube of Bisto gravy, and enough codeine to alarm border control.